lose ourselves,
Uh-huh.
right? So we lose ourselves in our kids, we lose ourselves sometimes in our marriages, we lose ourselves in our businesses. And in fact, I believe, and I don't know if this is accurate, but I believe from all the women that I've worked with and the thousands that I've helped, that we create the story to lose ourselves because we don't feel confident enough to step into the greatness that we're all here to bring to this world.
All right, ladies, this recording with my dear friend Annie is going to help you make major impact in your life. Annie is someone who works with and coaches thousands of women all over the world. She has been one of the biggest catalysts for me in making productive changes in my life. You know how people are constantly telling us, take better care of yourself so that you can take better care of others? It's like a broken record. Like, yes, we get it. We need to do those things. How do we do them? We're running our kids to school. We're packing the snack. We're meal prepping. We're doing the laundry. We're working. We're doing emails, social media, all the things. In this episode, Annie shares so many incredible tools that you can literally implement for free every single day. We talk about a few of the things that I did with her during a deep immersion in Park City. That is one of the greatest things I've ever done for myself. And she shares a lot of the tangible tools that I took away from that experience here on this podcast for free for you. Grab a cozy spot, get your beverage. This is one that at some point you're going to want to re-listen and definitely even take some notes. This is also one you absolutely want to share with a friend. The messages and the tools she shares in this podcast are so powerful. Enjoy. Annie Yach, I'm so happy to be with you.
I'm incredibly happy to be here. It just feels like magic.
It does. So this one's going to be different than all my other ones, for sure. I want this to be the most intimate podcast that I share with the world. And I've learned that intimacy literally means into me you see. And so I always knew that I wanted you on this platform. You're literally the catalyst for this platform coming out of me, as you know. And this morning I was really thinking about what's the intention behind this? Why do I want to bring this to the world? And it's really clear that the reason I want to do it is I want people to know it's okay to change. We're not only allowed to change, it's one of the most freeing things you can do. I have spent the last few years just really assessing my life on a deep level. I think like many people, and not that there's any, I have a great relationship with my husband. I love my career. I have 3 beautiful children, but I just know there's something more for me. And Annie, you are just the person in my life who has helped me see that. And so that's what I want to share. I want to share kind of what we went through together as an example for what people can do. And I want everyone after this to find their Annie in their life.
Oh my goodness. I'm so overwhelmed by like the pure joy of watching you in your element, speaking your truth and sharing who you are with the world. Because I think as women, we spend so much time trying to do so many things for other people. And we don't give ourselves the time to truly like unravel who we are and what we want, especially after having kids. Because after having kids, you lose a piece of yourself and you lose who you were before. And you're sort of in this pivot of trying to figure out, well, who am I now that I'm a mother and I'm a lover and I'm a wife and I'm an entrepreneur? There are just so many different facets of us as women. And I think for many of us, we don't love these different facets. And we don't even know how to find that love again for these different parts of ourselves that have been hidden. So I think that's where we started in the work that we did. We looked at, what are the patterns and what are the things that have been in the past that are no longer serving and are no longer part of who you are and who you are becoming.
Mm-hmm. I want to know, how do you see these things in people? Like, how did you know this about me? You knew things about me that I didn't even know about myself, or just even the words to help guide me figure it out. It's funny how, what's that quote? When the student's ready, the teacher arrives. And so I had literally gotten to a place in my life where I didn't know what it was going to look like. And this is often how I think, like, I don't know the what, but I know how it's going to feel. Yeah. And I knew how I wanted to feel. There's people that constantly tell me I'm love and I'm light and I have more to share with this world. And I finally could hear that message and I wanted to feel it and embody it. And I was in Park City, actually, at an event. And it was the morning, before the event, like having coffee with Jason. And I'm watching this docu-series by my good friend, Patrick Gentempo. And he interviewed your business partner, Larry. And Larry said something, and I don't even know that I'll describe it correctly, so I hope you can. But Larry is a Navy SEAL.
Yep.
And he was talking about how, when you go through Navy SEAL training, there's, what is it, weeks long of training, like the intensive, is it weeks
It's
long, days
called
long?
buds, and it's very intensive. It's they have a 6 week intensive, but in the middle of it is buds, which is hell week.
Hell
And so
week.
you've
Okay.
got literally the most intense experience that you can imagine.
Okay. And so Larry was talking about Buds Week, and he's like, it's so crazy because at the beginning of Buds Week, you look around and you're like, that guy's going to make it through, that guy's going to make it through, that guy's going to make it through. And you're totally wrong. He's like, the person that made it through was like the previous alcoholic from Texas, and then the pizza delivery guy that had a
Right.
shift in his life from Oklahoma. But he's like, I'd narrowed down what the one thing in common with them was. And what is that?
Well, the one thing that was in common is their ability to self-regulate, which is this concept that if you can emotionally, physically, and intellectually regulate yourself, then you have the ability to do extraordinary and some would say impossible things.
Mm-hmm.
So this piece, and what's interesting about it when you look at entrepreneurs, right? And let me back up just a little bit here. One of the things that Larry and I discovered, gosh, probably 7 years ago, is the fact that every single entrepreneur that we have ever met, ever known, they all have some unresolved trauma that has allowed them and pushed them into entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we discovered was if you have unresolved trauma as an entrepreneur, you're going to interact a certain way with your team. You're going to attract certain people to your team that are in the same trauma that you are in. And so once we started to discover this, we realized that entrepreneurs can cap themselves at a certain level of revenue that they can bring in because of the trauma that they have not resolved. So we started digging deeper into this concept of, okay, there are all these ways to quote unquote resolve trauma in this world, but how do we do it in a way that's loving and gentle and not requiring you to relive all the trauma? Because trauma is basically moments in your life when there's been a perceived loss of control. So we have to, when we think about trauma in our lives, right? You and I started looking at, well, where were all the moments where there's been a perceived loss of control? And it's not always what you think. It's not always something big, like a car wreck or an accident or a loss of a loved one. It can very often be some thought that you had as a little kid when your parents told you to go to your room, they closed the door, and all of a sudden you think, now I'm dead because that person that was keeping me alive is no longer here and I can't see them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was sort of the beginning of how we started looking at how do we help entrepreneurs look at this unresolved trauma in a way that is supportive and uplifting and going to bring them to the next level of where they want to go for their team, for their performance, for their companies. So that was where this all began.
He gave a really good example when I got to work with him, and he calls it getting off the ship. And he
Yes.
talked about this guy and the ship. Can you tell that story? Because I think it
Sure, of
really helps
course.
people understand how our traumas, and I love that you define that, just literally any moment in our life that has stuck with us that we have a perceived loss of sense of control of our lives. So this doesn't have to be, like you said, these major events. It can be little things.
Correct.
And I think one of the most important things that I have to say when I say this, because as moms, we create so much mom guilt anyway. So like, I don't want any of the listeners thinking, oh my gosh, I, told my son to go to his room and I did this, and am I causing trauma? You know what? We're probably all going to cause trauma in our kids' lives. I think what's important is to help them realize that there's tools to help.
Correct. And to love them through it using the tools, right? Because as parents, if we can use the tools on ourselves, then it's much less likely that we're going to cause as much trauma in our kids. There's nothing we can do about causing trauma. And it's our job as parents to give them the tools, the love, the support when trauma happens, because we can't prevent it. And honestly, if we tried to prevent trauma, we'd be trying to prevent their life journey and their discovery of self.
Got it. Love that.
So
And I do feel that trauma hardwires us, right? So
yeah,
I'm someone who typically spent a lot of time in fight or flight. And I
yes.
think that in my previous mind, that has served me really well as an entrepreneur. I have a drive, right? I'm a go-get-it girl. But now I see that I can still do all those things in a much calmer state.
Yes, and that is what actually is a great lead into this concept of the sinking ship.
Mhm.
So I'll give you the story of it so everybody can hear the story because I think it's really relevant. So back when Larry and I were developing this process of the sinking ship, it started because we met a gentleman who had been in the Coast Guard for I think 7 to 10 years. But when we met him, he hadn't been in the Coast Guard, for maybe 10 years when we met him. So when we talked to him originally, Larry had had a conversation and this guy had asked for our help because he was like, I haven't been able to maintain a job for longer than 3 or 6 months. And this gentleman had an incredible background, all in holistic Chinese medicine. And all he wanted to do was start his own program, his own process. And so he had said to us, I can't seem to hold down a job for 3 to 6 months. I can't start my own business. I haven't been able to stay in a relationship for very long. And I haven't been able to sleep very well at night, literally for the last 10 years. He's like, I know you guys are working on this concept. Can you ask me some questions about it or help me process this out? And so as Larry was talking to him, what was really interesting was he had said to him, well, you know, when you were in the Coast Guard, what was your job? What was your role? And his job was to make sure that the ship would not sink. Right. So he had to listen to all the noises the ship was making. He had to be, on top of everything all the time because if something happened to that ship, if the generators turned off and the ship started taking on water, literally the Coast Guard is the only remedy for a ship going down. And that means that he is literally the linchpin for that ship sinking or not sinking, for the loss of hundreds of people's lives or not. And so he got to be literally Sailor of the Year for 7 years straight because he was so hyper fixated and so on it. What's interesting about this concept is when we have trauma, for example, for him, the trauma was living in an experience where he believed the ship could always be sinking. So every day he had to think this ship could sink in any second. What would I do? And he'd have to run through in his head, these are the 10 steps I'd have to take to make sure this ship doesn't sink. Now, that is a perceived loss of control that becomes a trauma. So, if you're doing that for 7 years, and then all of a sudden you're not in that environment anymore, and the environment changes, you're still going to have that old program and that old trauma that's running your daily actions subconsciously. So, what we saw with him when we started asking these questions, he's like, well, yeah, I had to be on it. I got rewarded for it. I kept making Sailor of the Year. But he's like, now that I'm in my normal world, I can't sleep. And it wasn't until we had this conversation with him that he realized the hum of the refrigerator turning on or the hum of the electricity turning on was the same sound that he was triggered by on the ship if the generators were to turn on. And so he would literally be in a normal environment, hasn't been in the Coast Guard for 10 years, but he would hear the refrigerator turn on and it would trigger him back to that previous experience in the ship. And he would believe the ship was sinking. For him, the ship sinking meant I can't sleep. I can't hold down a job. I can't hold down a relationship. So he recreated that ship sinking in every aspect of his life because that was his old program that was wired into him to survive that traumatic experience.
Wow.
Did I do
And
a great job explaining all that?
I think that's great. Yeah. And then so the fridge hum that plays out for him is a symbol of something that plays out for all of us on a daily basis that pulls us into our traumas.
100%. So everyone has something, some trigger that is linked to the old program that was their survival mechanism. We call it a survival tool. They have a tool that they use over and over and over again, and it creates exactly the opposite of what they want. But until they know what that thing is, they can't change, they can't see it, and they miss tons of opportunities for growth and development.
I had a hard time being present because it scared me to deeply connect with anyone for the fear that I would lose them.
Yes, it showed up in your work, it showed up at home, and that's why you kept yourself so busy, because if you kept yourself busy, then you wouldn't have to be present, so then you wouldn't have to deeply connect, and you wouldn't have to feel the beauty and the bliss and the joy of being in that moment of connection.
Mhm. Yeah. So for me, I felt like I was doing a lot of work on things. Like it bothered me that if I was sitting with my kids on the couch reading a book and having this, it's like as soon as the feeling hit that this is an amazing moment, I would go to emails.
Yeah.
I can't be doing this. I need to be doing that. And I would pull myself out of that moment. And then as soon as I felt like I would get in the zone in an email, oh, the kids need me. And so I think it's a
Awesome.
pattern that's a real pattern for moms. Like it is just part of our life, right? We live in the work world and kid world. Um, but I just felt like I wasn't living in either one.
Well,
And
you weren't, you were living in the limbo in between, in the
mhm,
bouncing.
yeah. So, it's crazy just, and I would like to talk about some of the work that you guys have done, because I imagine people want to know, like, how did my rewiring happen? Because what's happened is, it's not that these feelings don't come up anymore. They come up all the time. But now I'm completely conscious of making the decision in the moment. So what happened to me that I know was a trauma is one of the first people that, it's like hard to talk about. One of the first people that I truly loved died. And I was 14, I think. And shortly before that, another close friend of mine got hit by a car. So I was really young, and had two really close people to me die instantly in really tragic ways. One was right in front of my brother. And so the fear of loss was real. And I'm actually really, I can look back now and be really thankful for that experience, because I think it's the biggest lesson that I've taken away from that, as soon as I crawled out of the hole that it put me in, was that life is short. Like, I literally know that to be true. And I don't want to waste a moment of this life. I've felt that way probably since the time I've been like 18. I want to connect with people. I want to make an impact while I'm here. So I'm so thankful. But it scared me. It scared me to have these connected moments with my children. What if I lose them? I'm going to lose myself, was literally the pattern that was playing. Because when Donnie died, I lost myself. I completely lost myself. I drank so much. I just wanted to be numb. I wanted to be numb, or I wanted to be asleep. And I would hope that I would see him in my dreams. So I literally, it's like I wasn't living. And so literally, connection to me, like deep, deep, real connection,
Was terrifying.
felt like I would lose myself, like I would die, which is our ultimate fear. Right.
Correct.
And that played out every day of my life.
The untruths that you had, that you were living in, is, if, I'm good, other people might hurt, or my light might cause other people to feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
I will feel empty, numb, or lonely. That loss is permanent, right? That success and ease in life is going to lead you to being hurt. That you can't fully connect, because if you do connect, that person will die and you will die, or you will lose yourself, right?
Yep.
So what's interesting is, even though this concept is a lie, it's not the truth. It's something that, because it was created and connected in your heart and your mind in a traumatic moment, it became the operating system through which you run every aspect of your life. Even though that is not at all who you are at your core, that's just the shield to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
So your ultimate fear, which I think is it's so beautiful to be able to speak this into the world, because I think a lot of people have this fear, is that you will lose yourself and that you will die if you connect.
Which I didn't realize it was that deep. I mean, that sounds dramatic, but if you really think about it, like, that, losing yourself is dying.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have no access to energy, you have no access to your soul, you have no access to your heart, right? And so anything that is connection based or ease based will lead you to getting hurt. That's the extrapolation of that fear.
Mm-hmm.
So then in your whole life, you would try to remove yourself from moments that are easy or connection based, so that you wouldn't die.
Mm-hmm. And how many women, especially moms, live every day like we're dying?
Well, I'd say the majority of us, right? Unless we do deep work,
Mm-hmm. Because we
because
lose ourselves.
we lose ourselves,
Uh-huh.
right? So we lose ourselves in our kids, we lose ourselves sometimes in our marriages, we lose ourselves in our businesses. And in fact, I believe, and I don't know if this is accurate, but I believe, from all the women that I've worked with and the thousands that I've helped, that we create the story to lose ourselves, because we don't feel confident enough to step into the greatness that we're all here to bring to this world.
Men.
Yep. And here's the other thing. We're not here to build empires for everybody else. We're here to come together as women and build the empires for all of us, I believe.
Oh my God, I love that. Tell me more.
Well,
You were just in Greece.
I was just in Greece, and in Greece, like, I feel like Greece is sort of like the birthplace of creativity. And I wanted to go because I'm like, I know there's something big that I'm here to create. And I've been having, visions and dreams and, beautiful moments of this concept coming together over the years. And literally it landed in Greece. And so if you're open to it, I might just share a little concept around it here, because it's linked to this women's empire concept. So ironically, women empires is not a domain that anybody has. So I snacked it up,
Right.
because this concept of women empires and the fact that we rule our worlds when we do the work, was so profoundly moving to me, because I feel like in every aspect of our life, if we do the work and if we step into our greatness, we can rule every aspect, every domain. We just need something to be that tipping point that allows us to pivot into who we truly are without these shields up and these trauma patterns and these tools that don't support us anymore.
Love it.
So
Love it. Love it. It's like that quote. It's not the darkness that scares us. It's the light.
it's the light.
Moving
It's the
into the light. It's
incredible like light of who we are that terrifies us.
uh-huh.
And that's why we try to lose ourselves subconsciously.
Mm, got it. So like we distract into these other things. We
Correct.
get ourselves busy
We distract,
or
we get busy, we devalue ourselves,
uh-huh.
we pile things on that don't need to be piled on. Sometimes it's activities to take the kids to, just because we're like, well, they should have all these activities, but where's our activity?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
So let's talk about the work. What's the work? So women, listeners hearing this right now, okay, I'm living every day like I'm dying. Annie, what do I do? What do I
All
do?
right. So the first thing you got to do, and this is something that you could do at home, right? This is not a really intense process, right? But the first thing you have to do is have to start looking for, where are you being triggered? Because we want to look at, where are the moments where you feel yourself amping up with either anxiety or anger or resentment, to figure out, how is that linked to a lie that might not be serving you. So from all the research I've done, I started looking at the lies that people have, like that sinking ship work that we talked about. So I was really fascinated, like, what are all these different lies? And I found that there are really four top lies that impact most people. And if you can see these lies and then start reframing them in your own mind, it gives you a leg up. So if you do nothing else, but look at your triggers and try to tie that trigger back to some lie you're telling yourself that might not be true, that's a really good start. So if you're open to it, I could talk through what the four big lies are that I've experienced with most people. And then if these lies resonate with you, you get to look at, okay, if I'm telling myself this lie, what is the false reward that I'm receiving from living in this lie? Because just like the guy who was in the Coast Guard, he was receiving the false reward of being Sailor of the Year because he was so hyper vigilant, right? So there's always a great skill and I would call it a superpower that comes from your trauma. And if you can start learning what that superpower is, then you have the ability to access it more often.
Yeah, let's
So,
do it. I think this
right.
is the part where people push pause, get your paper, get your pen. If you're driving and you're listening to this, you can re-listen to it when you're home. It's almost good to like hear it and just move with it and then go back and listen again and write it down.
Yes. So I'm going to pull this up and I'll send, for anybody who's interested, who listens to the podcast, who wants to have this sort of a short breakdown as to how to get to a breakthrough, I can send it to you and you can send it out to anybody who's interested. I just feel like it's a nice thing, like that's tangible to work on.
Beautiful.
But what I love most about looking for the lie is, if you start with, here are the lies that we know exist and we know we're creating, then we can go even deeper into those. So the first lie that I really see all over the place, I call it the productivity epidemic, is that we all believe that you have to be hyper productive to be successful,
Mm-hmm. Like
right? And so
moving,
you have to be
busy.
moving, right? You have to have lists, you have to have tasks, you have to have checklists, you have to be moving constantly, right? And for us as women, right, that is a big way that we distract ourselves from stepping into our greatness, right? Oh, there's always more to do. Of course there is. Laundry never gets done, right? So when you live in that lie, you're going to have a specific behavior of keeping yourself overly busy, overworked, and it's going to keep you out of the present moment, which means you're going to come home at the end of the day or be home with your kids and not be present for any of the moments of joy or bliss. So that's the first piece. That lie of productivity is not actually essential for success, but we believe it is.
Yep, definitely. Okay, I get
Talk
that
through the other three lies, and then I'm going to tell you the fundamental truths that counteract these lies, so that you can then live into these truths. So that even if your lie is something different than what we've talked about, if you live in these truths, you have a framework for how to live the best life you can live. All right. So second lie, and this is where this one really hits hard as an entrepreneur. It all falls on me.
one. Mm-hmm.
So how many times as a mom have you been like, well, nobody else is going to do it, so I've got to do it, right? And then you take this sort of victim mentality on yourself, which then creates the negative future of, I now am holding the burden for everybody. I'm the linchpin that holds everything together. If I don't do all these things, most of the things that I don't necessarily want to do that don't fill me up, I am creating destruction around me for my family.
And I can see how that one's rewarding, right? I love that you use the word entrepreneur, and entrepreneur in this case doesn't just mean someone who owns a massively successful large business. Moms are entrepreneurs.
Yes, they are.
And I can see how that one would be very rewarding subconsciously. Okay, the house is very clean. Everyone's going where they need to go. I'm the girl that everyone's like, how do you keep it all together? How do you do it all? You're so amazing.
So you're getting the false reward of praise from
Mhm.
other people who see you and they think you make it look so easy, but in
Yeah,
reality, you're dying inside most times.
totally. Okay.
Figure out, how do I hold all these balls in the air and how do I make it look like it's not killing me?
Mm-hmm.
So that's lie number two. Lie number three, and this one I really experience with moms and entrepreneurs at the same level. So lie number three is that suffering or grinding is the fuel for success. So
Mm.
using suffering, using the grind, overworking yourself, that's your fuel. Not the bliss or the joy or the connection or the being present. We're like, oh, the more we suffer, the more that fuels us to get to that next level.
Definitely.
Right? And the grind is not like, it's not pleasurable or fun to be in the grind, but we tend to have society praise us when we look like we're suffering through something.
Yeah. Before I met you, I would say I lived in that one. My soul is dying to just go to the park right now, but nope, got to do the emails and write the things. And no, I go to the park now.
Yep, and that's the
Mhm.
big change. And what do you do when you go to the park? You can
I
have access to all the creativity and the love and the joy that's in you that you want to experience.
I create space.
You do. And
Yeah.
so that's where this lie number three really is insidious because it will show up in so many areas and society rewards us for it, for
Mm,
suffering.
mhm.
So then line number four, and this is a big one that I found among women, which is why I always look at the concept of there is no comparison. Like we are all beautiful flowers and we all need to be in the same room. And no one's ever going to say, oh, that rose is more beautiful than that lily. No, they're all uniquely beautiful, right?
Mhm.
So line number four is the belief that comparison or competition is essential for growth.
Ye
So a lot of us as mothers are like, oh gosh, look at what she's doing. I should have my kids in more activities. Oh, look at what they're doing. I should do this. Then we end up shooting all over ourselves because we're comparing. And comparison is just the thief of all joy because it takes you out of the journey that you are on and it removes you from that discovery of self.
mhm.
So this is where this lie really puts you into a place of I'm not as good as I should be doing more. I should, you know, take this on. I should be this way. And it basically makes every piece of you not matter, but makes everybody else's different personalities or things that they're good at matter more than your personal traits. So,
I wonder how many times literally that plays out through the day. Like, it'd be so cool to put a rubber band around the wrist and literally, oh, her jeans are so cute. At first, I feel like it's this, casual observance. Such
correct.
cute jeans. And then it literally turns into a spin of like, I should wear cuter jeans. Why don't I?
I,
Why don't I
I don't
take better
know.
care of myself? I should really, I should really take better care of myself. My husband would love me more. Like it just
It is, we call it
all
the death
out.
spiral of the subconscious.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. So those four lies, right? No matter who you are, there's one aspect or more of each one of those lies that is impacting your life, whether you know it or you don't. Hopefully now you do. And
Mhm.
so now what we need to look at is we need to look at, okay, if these were all the lies, what are the four fundamental truths that if we live into these truths, we have the ability to develop and step into our greatness. So this is applicable no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, if you're a mother, if you're not a mother, if you have a family, if you don't. And that's really what we want to get to. We want to get to something that's foundational and fundamental so it can be applied across all experiences. So, with these, what I really love about it is that first lie when we talked about productivity or staying busy being essential for success, that lie violates the rule of connection. So, when you're in the connection space, you don't need to be productive because connection is the only currency that matters. Connection is what moves people, moves emotion, moves things, and allows you to take different action. And connection, we use a formula for connection. So if you choose to live by this formula, you have a really great experience of life. So connection is the combination of vulnerability, authenticity, and trust. You have to have all three things to build connection. So
Okay.
that is the first fundamental truth, this rule of connection. So
Okay.
if you show up trusting someone, being very authentic in who you are, and being vulnerable and being willing to share the parts of you that normally you wouldn't share, you're going to have connection, and that deep connection is going to make it so that you don't have to be productive. You will be successful just because you're connecting.
Love it. I just want to suggest an action step for that, because I say this all the time on here. Surround yourself with people who bring that out of you. Surround
Correct.
yourself with women who you feel that you can be authentic with, you can trust, and you can be vulnerable. And if you haven't found them yet, do those 3 things and see who sticks around.
And they're going to start being attracted to your energy when you're showing up that way.
Yes.
And
Okay.
you might have to let go of some people that aren't meeting you in that place anymore to go to that next level of who you are. And that's okay.
That's okay.
So that's lie number 1 and truth number 1. So now that we've got that, the second line we talked about was everything falls on me, like it's all on me to do all the time. But this violates the fundamental rule and truth of team. So what most people don't know is that, and they don't realize until we speak it, is that you are on a team across every domain in your life. So whether it's your spouse is part of your team, your kids is part of your team, your nanny is part of your team, your house cleaner is part of your team, your executive assistant is part of your team. Our success in life depends 100% on our ability to coordinate action or team with others. So everything never falls on you. That is the biggest lie that exists, because you are a part of teams across all domains in your life. So if you're suffering in some area of your life, go to where you're suffering and look at what team you're on in that space and try to elevate the connection that you have to that team.
The connection. Okay. Because I was going to ask, what about if, perhaps a listener is thinking, well, I don't have a housekeeper or a nanny. It's literally all on me. I get the kids to school. I rush to work. I pick them up from work. My husband and I are just not doing great. Who is my team?
So this is where you can, what I always recommend is that you find a team within yourself. So the first team you go to is your inner child and you.
Mm,
So when you feel like there is no team, then you go into the space of, okay, what does my inner child need? And how do I build that team with my inner child? And so I know this might be a lot for this call, but I'd like to at least give everybody listening a very specific practice to connect themselves to that inner child so that they never feel alone again.
yes,
Because
please do.
really, okay, so we're going to do it together right now just to show everybody how this looks.
Before you go, can I say this has been one of the most impactful tools that you've given me?
Yep. Right hand, ladies, on the heart, left hand on the stomach. This is because we're connecting our brain with our heart and our gut, the 3 centers of our nervous system in our body that control everything. Okay. So what you do is you put your right hand on your heart, your left hand on your stomach, you close your eyes. I want to keep my eyes open. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say things out loud, and Melissa is going to repeat them back to me. So you would say these things out loud with your eyes closed. So here we go. Hi,
Hi,
I'm listening.
I'm listening.
Thank you for sharing this with me.
Thank you for sharing this with me.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
I will always have your back.
I will always have your back.
I will always be here for you.
I will always be here for you.
All of your emotions are good.
All of your emotions are good.
All of your thoughts are important to me.
All of your thoughts are important to me.
I trust you.
I trust you.
I cherish you.
I cherish you.
I love you.
I love you.
Please forgive me.
Please forgive me.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are mine and I am yours.
You are mine and I am yours.
Would it be okay if we do life together?
Would it be okay if we do life together?
Would it be okay if we are a team?
Would it be okay if we are a team?
I'm going to run it through one more time. Hi,
Hi,
I'm listening.
I'm listening.
Thank you for sharing this with me.
Thank you for sharing this with me.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
I will always have your back.
I will always have your back.
I will always be here for you.
I will always be here for you.
All of your emotions are good.
All of your emotions are good.
All of your thoughts are important to me.
All of your thoughts are important to me.
I trust you.
I trust you.
I cherish you.
I cherish you.
I love you.
I love you.
Please forgive me.
Please forgive me.
I am sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are mine and I am yours.
You are mine and I am yours.
Would it be okay if we are a team?
Would it be okay if we are a team?
Would it be okay if we do life together?
Would it be okay if we do life together?
Now, how do you feel after running this through? I know you've done this many times, but doesn't it just feel like everything sort of sinks back up?
Totally. I have found that And I want to, after we go through these 4 lies and truths, I want to talk a little bit about the experience that I had with you, where we really went deep with some tools. I connect to my inner child every day. And so it's kind of what I've anchored with, like, when I feel myself going into the lie that I have to be busy to be productive, but asking myself, I literally ask myself now probably 20 times a day, what do I really want to do right now? What do I really want right now? And it's often, I want to go to the ocean. I want to go to the park. I want to drop my phone and emails and just go walk outside. I do it. And that's me connecting with her. And by giving it like a face and a voice and a person and a kid,
Yeah.
that I think was the catalyst for helping me bridge that gap, in case that can help anyone else who struggles the way that I did at first. It was unfamiliar to take that time for myself, that I was, it's like I had a voice inside of me begging to be
And
listened to
crying out,
and
crying.
crying out. Mm-hmm.
If we start listening, we're actually going to hear at first that there's a lot of pain, right, in the inner child that, they've been maybe neglected for years by us because we haven't been willing to give them what they want because the productivity or the work or the checklist have been more important, quote unquote, in our mind, right? And so, even though it might seem strange, if you can visualize like holding a little kid or a little version of yourself on your lap, like what I do is I always envision when I'm talking to my inner child that I'm holding her face. And I'm like, can you see all the love I have for you in my eyes? And I can hear her say, she's like, I love it when you look at me like this, right? So it's almost like you picture the littlest version of yourself that could understand what you're saying, and you snuggle them up with you, and you take a moment to ask, like, what is it that you want today, or what is it that I can give you, or what do you want to negotiate about what we do with ourselves today?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have that connection, then you will always feel like you are alone, but this is the connection that bridges all gaps.
Mm-hmm.
That
So,
is
so
one of
powerful.
the
It's
things.
so
So now
powerful.
everyone here has it. So don't be afraid to practice this often, 5 to 10 to 20 times a day. When I first started, I did it, I think, 20 times a day. Every time I felt triggered, like there was a big emotion that I was experiencing, I'm like, all right, I'm going back to her. What's going on here? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to test it out and do it a couple of times a day.
Yeah. And I would even say do it every day for a month. Like, watch
Yes.
how your life changes. And
Everything dramatically shifts.
yeah, and I noticed too with doing this, like anything that I needed, I felt like I needed the answers to, or I didn't know the answers to. Like now I sit in quiet so much more, and it's connecting to her is what helped me do that. I get the answers. Like I'm so much more clairvoyant, and um, just everything comes through. Like, nope, this is the way it's going to be done, and this is how I'm going to do it. But I take that pause that I never used to take.
And the pause, like when we think about it, that pause gives us a chance to hear the voice of who we truly are. We're just sometimes too busy to give ourselves the time. So the more we can sit in the quiet and give ourselves that pause, the more we have access to literally the supernatural powers that our brain wants us to have access to.
And I think, is that what people mean too? Like, I know a lot of people, this has been more familiar to people that have a deep connection with God. I think a lot of people will sit with God and God will provide the answers. I think because of the loss that I suffered at such an age, I didn't have a lot of belief in God. Like, why would God do this? So that was always a trigger for me. I can align with spirit or universe getting closer to God. But so I think some people may already know this connection, but if you don't, the inner child is so helpful as a tool.
And whether it's God or inner child or the universe or energy or source, there is something greater that is here for you. So relying on the belief and the concept that there is something here that is supporting you, even if you don't feel it in the moment sometimes, that's a really nice place to start.
Okay. Awesome. Perfect.
So then now we go back into these truths again. So we just talked about the truth around the rule of team. So now we go to that truth around the lie that was using suffering or grinding as a fuel. So what that lie violates is the rule of success. So when people think about success, and if there's only one thing you take from the call, I really want you to take this. When people think about success, they think of it as a future objective that they will accomplish. But the reality is that success is not a goal, success is a feeling. And so, if you want to create the feeling of success every single day, you have to think of it as an optimized daily experience that you can sustain over time. So,
Let's
if
say that
you,
again.
yes,
Optimized.
success is an optimized daily experience that you can sustain over time. So, if you look at your life through the lens of how do I create an optimized daily experience for myself that I can sustain over time, that is the key to feeling successful and not needing anything other than joy happiness, connection to be your fuel.
So
This
good.
is the biggest like brain explosion that I had was when Larry and I figured this out and we're like, oh my God, we can be successful right now in this moment. It's just an emotion.
Yeah.
But most of us go to the accomplishment or the goal. But if you keep going after the goal or the accomplishment, you don't get any dopamine. You don't feel any of that success. You basically just keep running from goal to goal to goal to goal. And there's no feeling of fulfillment.
You're climbing that mountain. And when I mean, Jason and I have lived this way for so long. We would set a massive goal, we would hit it and literally like not even high five and be on to the next. It's like this
Correct.
constant reaching for something. And again, after we did the work, um, the second experience I felt like is what really brought the first one, and everything we did in between home. I literally was like, there's nothing else I have to do.
There's
Like,
nothing
I'm
else.
good. And it's from that this has come. Like, now I know this is it. Cause I
And
sat in quiet. Like it's already here. It's already happened. Like there's nothing that I'm like, when I hit this mark, I'll be successful. It's here. This
you're
is it.
successful in this moment because you're being and doing exactly what you're here to do.
That definition of success is slap it on your mirror, put it in your car. That I mean, it's really, I think that's also a really great way to describe being comfortable, being present, like being in the present moment and being grateful for what you have as if it's already here. It's that is it. And that word success, I think, especially for people who are, you know, just constantly searching or like goal focused, goal oriented, that word really helped align with me.
Yeah, and if you think about it too, we don't spend that much time thinking about how do we optimize our day for ourselves. So if you can spend a little bit of time looking at your day and be like, okay, how would I optimize my day so that I am excited about these different moments? I have emotional connection and deposits in my brain bank. I mean, one of the things I do, which everyone always laughs about, is in between my calls, I have 10 or 15 minutes as a cushion and I put on tap dancing shoes. I turn up Broadway show tunes and I tap dance around my tile floor in my kitchen. And I don't know how to tap dance. I just like the sound of the shoes on the tile. So
I
my
love you
boys
so
will
much.
die laughing. They'll be like, "Mommy's gonna tap dance," and I'm like, "Yes, I am." And then the funniest part is my ex-husband, business partner. He's always like, "But you don't know how to tap dance." I'm like, "I don't care.
I'm already doing it. I'm
Already
already.
doing it, right?" So that's an example of like an emotional deposit that you put in throughout your day so that you can love the moments in between just as much as you love whatever it is you're doing. Because there has to be that emotional deposit to give yourself that feeling of success.
That's such a good action step too. If everyone would just take a minute and think about what are 5 things that maybe even sound crazy, but you love to do.
It might be something super simple. Like I started at the beginning, and this sounds so probably ludicrous, but I'd gone for so long in that productivity matrix that I couldn't think of one thing that I wanted to or that I could do except for I wanted to floss my teeth. And I'm
Mm.
like, I've been wanting to floss my teeth for years, like consistently. So that was my first thing. And I started flossing my teeth. And my ex was like, "You're flossing your teeth a lot." I'm like, "I am. It is great.
I finally made it.
I finally made it." Right. So even if something so small like that, or like having your favorite mug for like that delicious cup of tea and you pause for 2 minutes,
Yeah.
that's an emotional deposit,
Mm.
right? To create an optimized daily experience for yourself. So that would be my recommendation for anybody who's listening to this call. Spend a little bit of time thinking about what do I need in my day to make it optimized for me?
And again, do this every day for 30 days. Your life will massively change.
Massively change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then we've got the fourth foundational truth. So we'll go back to that lie. So we reiterate what the lie was. The lie was comparison or competition is essential for you to grow, but that violates the rule of fulfillment and purpose. Because what we have learned about purpose as we've worked with all these different entrepreneurs and all these different women is that if you let someone else dictate what you have to do, no matter what you achieve, you will never feel fulfilled because it is not in alignment with your purpose. So if
Mm.
you look to society or to Instagram or to social media to show you what you should be doing, even if you achieve those things, it will feel like nothing because you let somebody else dictate your deeply driving purpose instead of figuring it out for yourself.
And so if you look at someone, say it's on Instagram, and you're like, I want to do those things. I want that. Then what's like a great way for people to reel it back in and be like, wait, what is it that I really want? Would that be inner child?
So sometimes it's inner child, but what I tend to do, we have a process that we run people through to help them identify their inner purpose because it's really hard sometimes to get there without a third party support. So
Mm-hmm.
what I do when I think about it, and I mean, it's easy for me to walk through the system now just for people to think about. When I look at someone's purpose, I first look at what is the emotional state that you most want to create for yourself, not the objective, not the accomplishment, but what is the emotional state that you most want to live in sustainably? And then I look at what is the emotional state that you most want to avoid, because that will give you a little bit of almost like you have clarity on the path forward because you know what you want to feel and you know what you absolutely do not want to feel. So if you
Okay.
start there, that's a really good foundation for figuring out your purpose. And then what you do is you look at this concept around, okay, if there's one thing I'm going to hold on to every single day to move the needle and move me forward, what is this one thing that I've never held on to before? So, for example, I just did this process with a lady the other day, and she, her whole life, she had basically told herself that pain is what allows her to move forward. And what we identified was it's not really pain. It's what she needs to reframe it as is putting herself first is the one thing she's never done. So
Hmm.
she decided to hold that concept of putting herself first. And she looked at then what is the emotional state that I most want to get to allow myself to live in that space. And the emotional state was she wanted to live with joy and connection and like strong sense of self. And so she now knows if she holds this putting herself first, she's going to feel those feelings and that's going to drive her closer to her path. Now, there's a lot more complexity that goes into it, but that's the initial concept of how you discover what might be leading you down the path of your purpose so you don't allow somebody else to give you a purpose.
Got it. Okay. I love that. And then, so there's something that I do, and someone once pointed out as comparison, but it's not comparison. These are women that I've chosen to support myself with. So I want to talk this out. So if I see someone doing something that I want to do,
Yep.
like my friend Dr. Mindy Peltz is a perfect example of this. So she's not doing what I want to do, but there's certain things that she does that I'm like, that's awesome. I want to create that probably feeling.
Yep.
The women I surround myself with are the women that are like, oh, you want this piece? I'll totally teach you how to do it. Here it is. You're going to rock. Like
Yes.
those,
Generous.
I know I'm kind of pivoting
Generous.
here, but I really want part of this platform. I want to remind women every single episode, find people around you, surround yourself with them, the kind of people that you say cute outfit and they're not just like, thanks, I got it at Target, you could go get the same one, you'll look amazing in it. Like, I just think, as silly as that sounds, it's so important to have those people in our circle.
It's essential. I mean, it's so essential. And this is what, when I went on this retreat to Greece, there were a bunch of entrepreneurial women there with me. And I said to them, I said, what would it feel like if there was a one stop shop for your personal growth that would allow you to, like in Harry Potter, choose a house to start with? And each house was focused on a different development piece of your life. So,
Oh,
for example, like fitness and health would be one,
yeah.
trauma and breath work would be another, financial abundance would be another. Um, Sparking and kindling more romance in your life would be another about your relationships. I'm like, what if you could choose like a choose your own adventure of where to start in your development and use that as the launch pad and springboard for everything else you want to increase in your life, right? Because it's hard to find that network of support and that network of help, and it takes some time. But what if there's a one-stop shop where all these women came together and all these aspects were available and we all grow at the same time together?
Is that the Women's Empire?
That's the women's empire. Yep.
Mm. Rock on, sister.
Thanks. I'm so excited. I can't wait. And all the women that I talked to that are like, well, yeah, that would make life so much easier. We could just go to one place. And I'm like,
So much easier. I'm very excited to see what that turns into. I feel like that's a whole other call.
it really is. But it's in the process now. So it's all coming together and the right people are coming in. So it's just a beautiful thing. It evolves the way it needs to.
It does. It absolutely does. Okay. I feel like we have covered so much. Those are some incredible nuggets for moving the needle, things that any woman can incorporate
Yes.
in any aspect of any busy, chaotic life to stay more grounded and to connect. I think the connecting with yourself as the team is the most powerful one.
The most powerful for sure.
For
And if
sure.
you do that every single day for the next 30 days, you'll see changes that you can't even imagine in this moment.
I live it. Yep. Okay, Annie, thank you. I mean, those are such incredible tools everyone can incorporate every day. I hope you guys enjoyed your time with Annie as much as I did. Annie, thank you so much for being here with me.
Oh my goodness, you're so welcome. And I love seeing you shining brightly. It's literally the best thing ever.
Awesome. And then now we're going to click over and we're going to film a bonus track. You guys will have access to that below and you can check it out. Wow. I don't know about you, but that was incredible. How many takeaways do you have from that podcast? I'm so eager to see what this turns into for you. I absolutely encourage you to create a challenge for yourself. Pick even one of the tools or suggestions that Annie shared in this podcast and incorporate them into your daily life for 30 days. I promise you, your life will change. Thank you for listening. Be sure to like the video, subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming podcasts. And most importantly, please share with a friend that also needs to hear this message. Thank you for helping me get this out into the world. We can create such a better place by supporting, helping, and inspiring our mamas. Thank you. Look at my face. The most impactful in changing your life on a daily basis. I don't like that. Okay. In elevating and impacting my life, both as a mom, I keep saying impacting, that blah, 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 blah. You, thank you for sharing my message and helping me impact and inspire women all over the world. Adios.